Hi and welcome to the Fox and Pastels part 3, and it's time now I think to get this dark area in at the top. So I'm using my Rembrandt pastel, soft pastel, going in with a dark brown colour, reddy brown colour to start with. Then I come in with the black, just because I didn't want to make it a straight black kind of strip on the top. So especially on this edge, a lot of that brown going in. Now on areas like this, if you want, you could use a pencil, but it would weigh it down a lot obviously because it's quite a large area. I could have used the Condi sticks. Not as easy to blend, but once you start doing 2 and 3 layers of those blend very well and easily as well. So you don't have to go out and buy, specific soft pastels for this. So I'm just gonna block this in and blend it all out. So with that blended out, I'm now just gonna come back in, refine this blurry background a little bit more. So you can see with the rag on my lap there, that's what I'm wiping my finger on, just to clean it up a little bit. So just doing more of the same really with the background, just building up areas, adding more highlights, adding more vibrancy, and basically just refining it. So as you can see, just pretty much going over with another layer again, just because those extra layers go on a bit more smoothly. You can make minor adjustments to them. They look a bit more opaque as well. So it generally always looks better with 2, 3, 4 layers in places when you're doing these blurry backgrounds. Just going to touch this left side up a bit as well, because some of these dark areas are going a bit light and some of the light areas are going a bit dark, so just refining those as well a bit more, just so it matches up better with that right side. So now I've got that background in, it's pretty much all finished. I can start to think of the elements now that are going to overlap onto the background. So I've got a lot of these fine hairs coming up here on the top of the head. And they're a bit of a darker colour, so you're not really highly lit and bright. So I've selected, you can see my Carbothello pencil, so it's got a grey tip on it. And that's going over the background very, very easily, which is where you'd start to struggle a little bit more with coloured pencils. And I'm keeping the area on the top soft as well, so I'm touching it and blending it slightly with my finger every now and again, because don't forget it's a rounded kind of shape. I want it to look more three-dimensional, so lots of the times then these outer edges are quite soft, otherwise you get that that cutout look that I talk about on lots of my videos. As if you've cut a photograph out from a magazine and just stuck it onto a background. So that's why the edges are usually much more subdued. And you can see as well now I'll start to jump about a bit, coming in with darks as well. Because with pastels we can come in and put the dark on top of the light and the light on top of the dark and vice versa. So it really frees up a lot more that we can actually do with pastels. Don't have to go leaving and reserving the highlights. And because the pastel matte paper has got that tooth on it, I can keep going back and forth, light to dark, dark to light, just building things up. So you can see how I started with the darker colour, overlaying this orange. Then I can think about the highlights. So just got my sharpener at the top, my swordfish crank sharpener, 2 or 3 turns on that. I've got a nice point on there. I haven't sharpened it too much. Very rarely do I want a very sharp point on there. And now I'll come in with the highlights, so more of that kind of a Naples yellow colour. So the highlights coming on top. And that's something I always found with a couple of coloured pencil works I did. I never tried the coloured pencil on pastel matte, which by the same bit allows you to somewhat put a light over a dark, but on standard paper I never clicked with the fact that I had to keep reserving my highest highlight and drawing around it. And with nature that doesn't happen, you know, the highlight is usually the fur that's on top. And with pastel pencils and with paints as well, it's much more natural then that we are putting the highlight actually on top as it would be in real life. So it just makes much more sense for me to be doing it like that. So just going to carry on now doing more of the highlights and basically just detailing everything and refining that bit more. So slow back down to real time, and what I'm going to do now is start work on this left side as we look at it. Now I've got most of that background in. Need to darken this area and enrich it with a bit of this reddy brown Caran d'Ache pencil I'm using. And then I can start to lay the highlights on this section. And really, now that background's in, now I can really start to detail the fox and start to do those edge overlays as well. Get my reference by the side. Starting to bring out some more of the individual haze. And you can see they flow over the background very easily. But if you find perhaps you may want on your subject you're doing white haze going over a dark background and it's picking up the colour on the pencil, so you're then putting that dark background into the subject, into the white area by contamination, you know, the dark that's picked up on the pencil. Just wipe the tip of the pencil on your rag every stroke or so, just to take that contamination off. But on this instance it's working no problem at all. So see again the darker area in underneath, not blending out too much, blending with my finger, not the stump, because I want the marks to stay. Then coming in with the more the mid-tone, and then I'll come in with the highlight. So back in with that light Naples yellow colour, just to drag out now some of these, you know, more individual haze and small clumps of haze, basically the shine on the fur. So it takes a bit of patience, but worth it. Don't go rushing at this stage. I push a bit harder when I want more of a distinctive line, so I'm depositing more of the pastel from the pencil on the surface. And you can see now I'm really starting to bring those final highlights in. Sharp pencil, barely touching the surface then with my finger, but pushing quite firmly sometimes with the pencil to, get a real highlight in there. And this is the stage I've been working towards, these highlights. This is what's going to make all the difference and give it that, shiny three-dimensional look. Coming in with a lot of this vibrant yellow for this side that's extremely sunlit. I want to really get that colour zing in there. So I'm making sure I'm not going in just with white pencil or creamy coloured pencil. I want to get that yellow under there first. Now starting to come in with the real vibrant white highlights. Sharp pencil. Using it at approximately the length of fur that I'm recreating. I want to get some detail in this under fur with this lighter orange colour. Need some darks in there too before I overlay those whites on top. So you can still see, even though I'm putting the white down, I'm not creating a block of white. I've still got some form of definition going in there. You can still see the haze. A few suggestions here as well, just to show the direction that light is coming in. Need to make these areas quite a bit darker. I didn't go dark enough, so that's not a problem. Just using the pencil lightly, I can put these darks in, smudge them out, then I can come back in with some more of the highlights on top. And I want these marks to blend out quite a bit, so I'm using that soft stump on his side rather than my finger. Finger wasn't blending it enough, so I want this to look quite soft underneath before I put the highlights on top. So continuing that process now, and I'm going to gradually go lighter and lighter. Needs to go quite bright, you know, but I remember the fur's got lots of depth to it, especially on an animal like this, so I need to create those under layers and go lighter on top, not rushing straight away to the highlights, because then it'll look just flat because you'll only have like one layer on there or two layers. I need to build this depth up. So as you can see now, I'm really starting to come in with the highlights, putting more pressure on the pencil. I could have used a Caran d'Ache. It'll be my lightest light. It's slightly whiter than this, but the trouble with that is it is soft and it leaves kind of a grainy texture on the paper surface. If you use one and use it against the or next to the Carbothello on pastel mat, you'll know what I mean when I say kind of a grainy texture, which on the fox's very light areas is just fine. It's kind of the texture I want to create anyway, so that won't be a problem. So just gradually going lighter and lighter now. Still keeping it soft in areas. I'm not looking to create the identical hair as I've got on the reference. I don't want to spend that much time on it. I'm after, you know, the general feeling and impression of it, creating the texture of fur. I need to work on this small area down the bottom as well, and on the foreleg to the right a little bit more, but it's coming along quite nice now. %90 of it is probably done. I'll just lift that up a little bit more so I can see and work on this section a bit. Just coming in that bit lighter again. That's basically what this last stage is all about. Lightening areas and darkening a few as well. I decided I didn't like this black area, it's a bit too dark, so I'm coming in with a green on top of it. And that's going to subdue it and take that away from being more of a, an interesting point. I don't want people really studying that because it's kind of too light against the dark. So just adding that green will balance the tones out a bit more. And now I'm just going to work on refining everything, the back part of the body as well. I'll use the Conde sticks, I think, a bit more to keep that softness in the body. So even at these late stages, you don't have to, keep going in with a pencil if the stick actually gives the effect you want. And these Conde sticks are nice and vibrant on some of the colours, so that's what I want. I want to keep this vibrancy here. Just want to darken this section as well. Difficult to get a very dark red brown, as I've mentioned before, so just gonna have to do the best I can with it. It's not quite red enough, but I want to get the tone, the darkness more accurate. Not too worried about the colour will be good enough. Coming back now with the final refinements on the head and the face, and just generally I'm going to be working over the whole of the drawing as I see little parts and things I want to adjust. I'm using my marl stick, which you've seen me use probably on my oil painting videos. It's just keeping my hand off the surface now, because I don't really want to be resting on it even with paper under my hand. And this just steadies me that bit more. So just darkening some areas, lightening some areas, just refining. Time to get my brightest whites on this, so coming in with that Caran d'Ache pencil. Fairly sharp point on it. And just using that then for the punchiest white. Now the white is showing up a bit more on the reference photo. I don't want to blow the highlights out on mine, but I want to get them nice and vibrant. I'm not worried too much about it being an exact match of the photograph at all at this stage now. I'm going with, you know, what feels good, looks good. just going to start to re-establish the blacks a bit more, because when you rest on things and as the drawing progresses, things get a little bit muddy and the blacks are not as black as they were. So I'm just going to, just refine, re-establish those, put them back in, making sure that the blacks are really nice and a nice contrasty black in there. Now to do the individual tiny little hairs, which you can't really get with pastel because you can't sharpen it that much, just using a standard coloured pencil, but only using it for, just a couple of tiny little hairs here and there. Now I'm going to do the same thing with the black coloured pencil, just for these dark whiskers, and just because they are so very fine, which is something I'd struggle with them with the pastel pencils. Obviously the coloured pencils really hold their point a lot more, and the pencils go over the pastel pretty good to an extent, as you can see, whereas you can't put pastel over the top of coloured pencil because the pastel just won't stick to the surface of it. So same on the other side as well. It's a little bit easier if I can stand up and get out the way of the camera. So as I bring this video to an end, I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope it's been something a bit different for you, and perhaps you've picked up a few tips along the line. See you all again real soon.